Thank you for joining me here on this video. So it's that time of the year when Jehovah's Witnesses have their convention, and this year, due to COVID-19, they're holding their convention online. Now, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I was born into the organisation and I grew up in it, and I left, or rather I escaped, around the age of 21, 22. And for many years, I loved going to the convention. It was the highlight of my year. And I also loved going to all the regional, smaller conventions, the district assemblies, I think they called them back then. I loved going to those. And for me, I loved being part of something big. And to meet other Jehovah's Witnesses who have the same belief, the same faith as me, to listen to the news that were coming off the platform in the talks. And I was like a sponge, literally absorbing absolutely every word that came out of those speakers' mouths. Little did I know, little did I know little did I know how I was being deeply mind controlled and deeply indoctrinated. And I look back now and I just can't believe that I fell for it. I just can't. So I loved being at the assemblies, but back then my eyes were completely closed. So now that I'm out of the organisation, I've been out over 30 years, and it's only in the last couple of years that I've really started to unpick what I was taught. I'm now going to review the convention with completely fresh eyes, wide awake eyes, and new opened ears, and a clean, indoctrinated heart. So I'm going to review the convention and give you my perspective. So I'm going to break the convention down into different videos. So if you've not liked and subscribed to my channel, please do so. So that way you will be able to know when I release a new video. So there is so much to talk about in these videos. There really is a lot. So what I've done to keep it within a manageable timescale, I've just cherry picked some of the key points that I want to talk to you about and share my thoughts on. So what I'll do is I will show a clip and then I will comment on it until we get through the morning. So I'm going to start off with the Friday morning's session. Okay, so here we go. They now started their propaganda. Now we have a man who is arriving at a prison in the dead of night. He goes in and essentially he's being thrown into prison. But funnily enough, after being harassed and interrogated and thrown into prisons with other, I assume other brothers and sisters, because they're all hugging, he manages to get hold of his Bible and he's released just in time to attend the convention. Interestingly. So for me, the message is, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. You could be thrown into prison, but Jehovah's going to find a way to get you out of prison so you can attend the convention. How convenient. And then the propaganda starts to get that little bit deeper. So here we see disabled people. In particular, in this scene, we have a man is in hospital. He's refusing to sign papers that his doctor is encouraging him to sign, possibly around maybe organ transplant or a blood transfusion, perhaps, we don't know. But this man has no arms, no limbs in terms of his hands and his wrists, but yet he's shown reading his Bible and flicking through the Bible. Yet, although he has a disability, he is still able to study and read his Bible, go out in field service with his family and preach and attend meetings. So they're really guilt tripping. Next, they show a severely disabled sister, and again the same thing. She's reading her Bible, turning the pages with her tongue, having a Bible study, going to the meetings with assistance from other people, and even going out in field service. So again, the message here is, if these disabled brothers and sisters can go to the meetings, go out and field service, preach, study, all of this, then why can't you? And that really is the message that they're trying to get across. Really guilt tripping. And you know what? When I was a Jehovah's Witness, I would have fallen hook, line and sinker. And I did. For many years, I fell for it. So that is the scene that they're setting to make you feel guilty, to make you feel, do you know what? I need to be doing more. So the assembly tone is now set. We're really going to get into the more guilt tripping, the propaganda, and more indoctrination.
In the near future, our faith will be tested as never before. But if we acquire true joy with the help of God's Holy Spirit, we'll be able to stand firm and weather all the storms that come our way.
Okay, so the first scene that I wanted to pull out and share with you was that of Coco the Clown. Oh, sorry, did I really say that? Sorry. Stephen Lett, a member of the governing body. He is a very interesting speaker, and I'm interested very much in watching him and his body language, but also his words. In this particular scene, he stresses that as Jehovah's Witnesses, their faith is going to be tested very soon.
In the near future, our faith will be tested as never before.
Now, I just found that interesting because when I was growing up as Jehovah's Witness, I was under the impression and led to believe that every single day my faith is tested, every single day. But yet he's not implying that, he's implying that very soon in the near future their faith is going to be tested. So again, this is kind of almost guiding people towards the fact that Armageddon's going to come, and therefore they need to be prepared for any persecution that comes their way and to have their faith tested.
Our joy comes from that deep inner satisfaction of knowing that we have the truth, that we're doing what pleases Jehovah, and that our kingdom hope is sure.
So Stephen Letty's here saying that joy comes from knowing that you've got the truth and pleasing God, Jehovah. And do you know what? When I was a Jehovah's Witness, that certainly was true for me, because again, I was so blinded and so indoctrinated, and I can remember sort of being out in the ministry as a pioneer, as a full-time pioneer, doing 90 hours a month, traipsing the streets in the rain and the cold and the snow and the extreme sunshine, and just feeling really tired and feeling really exhausted, but feeling that I've got to be joyful because I'm doing this for Jehovah God and I'm making Jehovah happy. And I look back now and I just think that is just so warped that, you know, I felt like that. I say back then, because I was so indoctrinated, I just felt that I had to do that to make God happy. And now I look back and I think, yeah, this is where that false mental thinking, that false mentality has come from, because it was just so drummed into us for so many years and from being a child. So yeah, a very interesting point he makes.
So godly joy is not the transient joy that people experience because they've secured a well-paying job, gone on an exotic vacation, attained fame and prestige, or acquired some coveted material item or large sum of money. No, true joy has to be cultivated by means of Holy Spirit. To obtain Jehovah's Holy Spirit, we have to draw close to Him and give Him exclusive devotion. At Acts 5:32, we're told that God gives Holy Spirit to those obeying Him as ruler.
Now, I found this bit really interesting because Stephen Lettier is saying that the joy doesn't come from having a promotion, having a job, having a holiday or prestige or something like that, but rather it comes from this godly, spiritual element of serving God. Well, as I got older as a Jehovah's Witness, and just before I left the cult, I didn't feel joyful. My joy had completely gone, because the life I was expected to lead, which was meetings, field service, personal study, meetings, field service, personal study, meetings, field service, and just like that, there was nothing joyful about my life. I felt like I was on that rabbit wheel, on that hamster wheel, going round and round, you know, the same thing, repetitive, and there was no joy, there was no fun, no, very, very little social interaction, because going out socially was frowned upon. And the only time we could do anything as young people was if we were accompanied by an elder. So there was very little was done. So I had no joy in the latter years of being a Jehovah's Witness. And when I left, that's when I started to experience joy, which is contrary to what he's saying, because he's saying that there's no joy to be found in jobs and holidays and things in the world. But actually, those things for me brought me real joy, because I was now happy. I was happy, and I was happy having a job and a career, because I felt that I had a future that I could work towards and build a life for myself. I could enjoy holidays and see the world, see Mother Nature and beautiful things in the earth, in the world, learn about different cultures, try different foods. that for me was very joyful, and I was very happy. Getting a promotion at work was fantastic. I built a career, started a business, all of those things for me, which interestingly he's frowning upon, brought me joy. And it brings a lot of people joy, because when you can be self-sufficient and you can have the things in life that you want, of course you're going to be happy. And yes, I agree, there comes a limit where, going for all of those things and treading on people's toes and accumulating masses of wealth doesn't necessarily bring people happiness, but having a measure of that can, and it does.
We love you very much.
Now, it's interesting. I have studied body language to a small degree. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert, but I have studied body language and psychology in the past, and I've done it to degree level. And I notice, one of the things that I notice when people speak is their body language and their head movement and their eye movement, because it, when you know what you're looking for, it gives away an awful lot. And in this scene with Stephen Lett, notice his head movement.
We love you very much. We love you very much.
He's saying, "We love you very much," and he's shaking his head. How can you associate a positive statement with a shake of the head? It just doesn't go hand in hand. It would normally be a nod. So I just found that, and picking up on his body language, really, really interesting.
In fact, the Bible says that he always has reasons to rejoice, so much so that being happy describes his personality. Let's see this for ourselves as we read 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 11. The context in verses 8 through 10 lists many of the bad qualities and actions that people of this world display, but they can change if they listen to our joyful God Jehovah.
So in this next scene with this speaker, again, Jehovah's Witnesses, they love to set everything out as black and white, good and bad, holy and evil. But anything to do with anything outside of the cult is bad and evil and wicked. And they just love to use the Bible to really get their point across about how bad and evil people in the world are, and that the only way that people can change, funnily enough, is if they become Jehovah's Witnesses and start serving their God and the governing body.
Jehovah is generous, and we know what the Bible says about those who give. And aren't we grateful for all that Jehovah is providing to help us and support us now through a very difficult time?
And here he cannot miss the opportunity to have a little dig about being generous and giving. So we know what they're after. Hang on to your purses and your wallet, guys. They're after your money.
So again, first, what does Jehovah do? He kindly makes the path of life known to us. Next, what type of relationship can we have with him? A very close one, it says. If you've been keeping up with God's organization, you should feel well fed spiritually. The bad conditions of this world must not be permitted to take away from our joy. As Jehovah said, we shout joyfully. Why? Because of the good condition of the heart. We are more ready than ever before to see the realization of our hope. On the other hand, the world around us is suffering because they lack clear direction and they are without real hope.
So again, Jehovah's Witnesses are very good at really stressing that unless you are part of their organisation, then you've got lack of direction and you have no hope. And again, this constant painting anything outside of the cult as doomed, really. But I just find it interesting that Jehovah's Witnesses as a cult, they lack direction themselves, because you look at the leadership and they're constantly changing their views, changing their dates, changing some of their policies that suit themselves. So if that's not lack of direction, then I really don't know what is.
Just as a tree anchors itself in the earth's nourishing soil, so true joy is anchored in the sayings of Jehovah. And those sayings promise us joy that will last forever. But isn't it also true that Satan's world promises to give us joy? Yet any measure of joy derived from things in Satan's world, such as pursuing wealth, wrongdoing, extreme views of work, or friendships in the world, is a false joy that is short-lived. Well, how long will we experience joy if we seek it in this poisonous world of Satan? Not long at all. This symposium will contrast what the world teaches about joy with what God's Word teaches.
So this next speaker, again, is coming with his doomsday perspective, saying that the only way true joy can be found is if you're part of their religious cult, but anything in the world is short-lived. And again, I wonder, how would they know? Because a lot of these speakers have been raised as Jehovah's Witnesses, if not been Jehovah's Witnesses for much of their adult lives. So how would they know what true joy is, or how to seek joy in the world? They've just been raised in this cult and have this very jaded view of anything that is not in their organisation. In fact, I know more joyful people, happy people, blessed people, contented people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses than those that are. So where they get these views from is really, really beyond me. And again, I just think that it's designed to create and keep people fixed within this fear culture that you never want to go out of the organisation because, well, it's just all doom and gloom and bad and wicked and evil. And that's why they're using all of this loaded language.
To further illustrate this point, as you watch the following dramatization, consider how a brother responds to an offer of more money and how it affects his joy.
So now they're taking us to this dramatization of a young man who has a family, he has a job, and they're going to use it to really kind of get their point across as to whether or not have taken on more responsibility at work can give you true joy or not. So it's interesting.
You wanted to see me?
Yeah, come on in and go ahead and close the door, please. Thanks for coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Ben, all of your projects have come in on schedule and under budget. We're really impressed, and we want to move you up to the management team. Now,
Wow.
You'll head up the whole division to start.
Management team. I like the sound of that. Not to mention the pay raise and the bonuses. It did sound like a lot more work, but Victor was so positive.
There may be a little overtime here and there, but I wouldn't worry about it, not with your skill.
He told me I could think about it before deciding. But come on, this was a no-brainer.
So here we are, we have this young man who is at work and his boss has called him up to see him, and notice all the little placements in the office, the set of brand new shiny golf clubs. And if you know anything about golf, you'd know that those clubs are not cheap. all the certificates on the wall, the trophy in the cabinet, the posters in the room.
And go ahead and close the door, please. Thanks for coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, very staged to try and show the materialistic side of work, and the things that they're trying to say can trap you compared to if you just live this simple life.
The new position was great. And the money? Well, that wasn't too bad either. It was exciting to work directly with clients. But the hours were crazy.
It's been said that the easy thing to do and the right thing to do are seldom the same. We see an example of this in this week's Bible reading. True worship, the right thing, was not easy, but required hard work. King Hezekiah demonstrated his zeal for Jehovah's worship.
So a question for the audience is, how could we explain this to someone? Ava, please.
Most nights, I was wiped out.
All around the world, many people wonder if life has any purpose.
And I have to admit, even when I wasn't working, 20 minutes. I was working.
So, a couple of things in this scene. So, this guy has been approached by his boss to join the management team, and he's really trying to envision and visualize what it's going to be like. So, they're playing out the scene. He's at work late, although he enjoys his job. He's working late, and because he's working late, that means obviously he's going to be late for the meetings. And when he gets to the meeting, he obviously, without a shadow of a doubt, he's going to fall asleep. So again, really trying to paint this negative picture that if you take promotion, then you're going to suffer. And you're even going to miss out when your young daughter gives answers at the Kingdom Hall. And interestingly, funnily enough, just looking at that scene just reminded me of myself when I was growing up, sitting there in the seat, my feet couldn't even touch the ground, but yet so indoctrinated, and every question just trying to get my hands up to take the microphone and to give an answer. And I look at that little girl and I just think that is just so sad, the way that she is being indoctrinated and being brainwashed at such a young age, and the damage that that's going to do. Because some of my earliest memories is being 4 or 5 years old and answering in the meeting and studying the magazines and reading those terrifying books. And now that I'm a grown woman, it still haunts me. I still have nightmares. It still haunts me, and that indoctrination is so hard to undo. And the damage that they're doing to these children is just untold.
As highlighted in the video, why will pursuing money not make us happy? Because we wouldn't be following Jehovah's advice. And that would cause us to fall into a snare or trap.
So here we go. The speaker has got to the crux of the matter. Jehovah's Witnesses, the governing body, the organisation, do not want you spending time at work more than is necessary to earn a simple living. They don't want you to get involved in promotion, taking on management responsibilities, whatever, because they fear that it's going to take you away from spiritual things. Now, I really take issue with this. I really do. I'm on my soapbox. I'm getting on my soapbox, so please excuse me. The reason I take issue with this is because when I was growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, there was a lot of poverty amongst the brothers and sisters, amongst the people in the organisation, not just in my congregation, but in the wider community. There was a lot of poverty, and the reason there was poverty was because they were working very part-time hours and in, you know, menial jobs. And I say that I don't want to make any job seem menial, but they didn't encourage people to go on to higher education or to get professional jobs, but rather, you know, in my congregation, you know, a lot of the elders were window cleaners or car washers. The women were, and myself included, just very basic jobs in, as you know, in office work or shop work, very, very basic. Now, nothing wrong in that, absolutely nothing wrong in that, but they didn't encourage you to better yourself. Now, the reason I take issue with that is when I was a pioneer and I was working part-time, earning, back then we didn't even have minimum wage. We have minimum wage now, which is the law, but I was just earning a few pounds per hour. I couldn't afford just the basic things. So I had my own flat. So once I'd paid my rent and paid my bills, there was very little money left over to buy clothes, to have a holiday, or to save. There was very little money. And so I, as a pioneer, I was poor in the sense that I didn't have much disposable income. And the congregation that I went to, whilst they were so overjoyed to have me as a pioneer, wasn't supported in any shape or form. Apart from once, I remember one sister once gave me £5, and she says that's to help you as a pioneer. And you know, I value that and I appreciated her generosity. And then there was other brothers and sisters who used to invite us pioneers over for meals and that. But other than that, there was no assistance whatsoever. And my parents they helped me out financially. So you have now men and women who have families and they have children, and children need things. They need things. They go to school, they want to go on school holidays. They need uniform, they need clothes, they need food on the table, they need a roof over their head. These things cost money. So Jehovah's Witnesses, it's all right for the governing body who have their home at Bethel and they are fed and watered and they can take their money and go off and buy whiskey, and you know, it's fine for them to do that. But there are a lot of families who are living in poverty because they are discouraged from going out and earning money by taking a promotion or working whatever hours they need to be able to provide sufficiently for their families. So it's really discouraged. You're encouraged just to do the minimum and devote your time to the field service and to pioneering, and that is voluntary. It's voluntary. As a pioneer, I was walking out my shoes and my boots. I had holes in my shoes and my boots and couldn't afford to replace them. I was buying my clothes from charity shops or in the US from thrift shops. or having clothes donated to me because I couldn't afford to buy them. And this is the life that Jehovah's Witnesses want their people to have, to be living in poverty. Now, that's us here in the West. If you're in America, Canada, Australia, the UK, our level of poverty is different to those in developing countries. So if you're living in an underdeveloped country, can you imagine that? Some of these people won't even have a home which is safe and secure. No electricity, no running water, no food, none of the basics that we have over here or in the developed world. And yet they're being brainwashed and guilt tripped to say, don't take promotion, don't go after a career, don't go after jobs that's gonna, take a bit more of your time or it's gonna earn you more money. No, live in poverty is what they're saying. Live in poverty, live on the breadline so that you can donate and contribute more time to us. And whilst you're at it, don't forget, Jehovah's a generous God, so you must be generous. Live in poverty, but give us your money. I think it's evil. It's absolutely, totally evil that they can stand there and put out this propaganda. And the saddest thing of all, because it's one thing these people saying it, but the saddest thing is that, like myself, people were so deeply brainwashed, we would believe it and we would do it. And it's evil. It's nothing short but the work of the devil to encourage people to live in poverty when there's opportunity for them to take a job that pays well so they can provide well for their families. It's evil.
As mentioned at 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9. Without our even realizing it, that snare can consume our time that we need to be spending on spiritual things. How is that shown in the video? Well, the pay raise, bonuses, new car, and other things may have made our brother happy for a short time. However, did you notice how pursuing money was a snare for him? Most nights he was exhausted from working long hours. He arrived late to the meeting and fell asleep. And did you notice what happened to his participation in the field ministry, the most important work on earth? It suffered, didn't it? He wasn't prepared, and he experienced interruptions from his workplace. It's true that money is useful. We need it to buy food, shelter, and clothing. But trading spiritual things for wealth is always a poor investment.
Okay, so this guy is really doing my head in. He really is. So he's trying to get you to notice things, how the guy in the dramatization was tired, he was working late, he was arriving late for the meetings, his ministry was suffering, and I tell you what, that's the most important work on earth. Wake up, people, wake up. What was making this bloke so tired was because he's trying to please the organization. He's trying to please these men who are saying that they're speaking for God. I remember reading the Bible and it's saying something about Jesus saying that his yoke is light. God has no burden. God puts no burdens on us. His yoke is light. So if this guy in the dramatization was allowed to work, earn money, provide for his family, and not feel burdened and pressured to then on top of that do this most important work on earth, which is devoting your time voluntarily, standing out on street corners like and this is my term for them when I see them, they're like spiritual prostitutes, stood out on the street corner peddling their wares. If he wasn't required, or if he wasn't brainwashed and mind controlled to do that, to be a spiritual prostitute peddling his spiritual wares out on street corners and doing all of this for these men in New York, if he wasn't guilt tripped and felt that he could just provide for his family, there'd be no problem. Because that's what people in the world do. We go out, we go to work, we enjoy our jobs. So most people enjoy their jobs. They earn money, they provide for their families, and they could have a standard of living that means that they're not in poverty.
Wow.
Now, you'll head up the whole division to start.
Victor's offer really took me by surprise. And wow, the perks were tempting. But I knew there was a lot at stake. So I told him I'd talk to Lisa and get back to him tomorrow. What was this job going to mean for our spiritual goals? Would we still be able to keep our life simple? Were we ready to trade our time together as a family for more money? The next day, I told Victor how much I appreciated the opportunity, but felt that it just wasn't the right fit for our family. Money was tight, but we were okay. We had what we needed. Saying no to that promotion meant holding off on a few upgrades. But it also meant more time for meeting preparation.
Brother Miller. Let's go on and look at...
More time for the ministry. And more time for each other.
And there you go. That's the crux of it. They want you to stay in poverty so you can have more time for meetings, more time for ministry, more time for personal study, more time that they can control your mind, control what you do, and be an invasive intruder in your life. And that's the crux of it.
Did you notice the happiness of our brother and his family when he decided to live a simple life? But why does a simple life bring us happiness? Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 12 highlights one reason. Let's look at that together. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 12. Why does a simple life bring us happiness? The verse says, "Sweet is the sleep of the one serving, whether he eats little or much, but the plenty belonging to the rich one does not permit him to sleep." So those who possess much may be anxious about losing their possessions and thus lose sleep worrying about them. In contrast, those with little materially have less to worry about, and they can enjoy, as the verse says, sweet sleep.
Well, I totally disagree with the speaker here. He's saying that those that have little and to have a simple life and little possessions and that have less to worry about. I don't know what planet he lives on, but as I said, in my area where I live and in my community, it's the people with less, with very little, that have the most worries, because they're worried about how they're going to pay their bills, keep a roof over their head, and put food in their children's mouths. So having less and having that simplistic life with very little doesn't make you sleep better. It can actually lead to a whole range of social problems, and those social problems can be deep, from housing and home, and also being able to choose where you live. If you have little money, people are often living in the poorest parts of town, and if that is the case, they might be exposed to drugs, violence, burglaries. They feel unsafe in their own homes, in their territory. A lot of crime as well. And again, so that can have an impact because they don't have the money to be able to live in a better area. If they have little, if they're not earning their money, then their health can suffer because they may not be able to afford healthcare. And over here in the UK, we get our healthcare free on the NHS. But things like dental care, they may not be able to get that. And some of the poorest people in our community, whilst they have their medical care, their dental care suffer, and it shows in their teeth. And then they get gum diseases and all sorts of things. They can't afford to buy good quality food. So their diet then suffers, their health suffers, they're living on processed foods, if they can afford that food at all. We have people who rely on food banks where they have to get food that's been donated because they can't afford to buy their food. They live with the stress of their electricity, their gas, their utility water bill being cut off because they can't afford to pay those bills. Sometimes they can't afford to run a car, so they're having to rely on public transport, so that then affects their ability to get to work, get out and socialise and just live their life. They can't have holidays because they haven't got the money, and therefore they can end up being stressed, and that impacts their mental and their physical health. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And we see that, or I saw that, with a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses in the area that I lived when I was growing up. And so where this speaker is coming from is beyond me. You don't sleep any better because you live in a simplistic life, because you choose not to take a promotion to earn more money. It's a nonsense. Again, it's all part of their propaganda in order to keep control of you, to know where you are, what you're doing, having to report your time in field service, and they allow you then to spend as little time as possible in the secular world working. It's a crazy nonsense.
Hey Ben, looks like you forgot to sign off on the job order.
Actually, these failed that quality inspection, remember?
Yeah, by like 0.2 of a point.
Yeah, I already talked to Steve about replacing the components, and we're gonna get that order adjusted, and I'll have a new one for you on your desk tomorrow afternoon.
Ben, there's no time for that. This is a huge account. If you don't sign off on this, you'd be hurting the whole company. What?
Victor, I'm not sure that I'm really comfortable bypassing the inspection when...
Ben, I'm not asking you to tell some big lie. This is a technicality. Remember, a good quarter means good bonuses for everyone, including you.
I didn't want to do it. But the last thing that Lisa and I needed was for me to lose my job.
Hi, they can't believe you. and they might not
I
want
kept
to
telling
be.
myself that it was no big deal.
All lies are bad, even little ones. One lie leads to another, and they cause much harm.
It's simple, right? Jehovah's people always tell the truth.
So here we have this guy, he's at work and he's being pressured to falsify some documents and to tell lies. And then it flips to a scene in the Kingdom Hall where they have some weird cartoon and this weird voice saying all lies are bad and he's feeling guilty. Well, where to start? Where to start? Seriously, Jehovah's Witnesses, the organization is built on a massive lie. It's built on one enormous lie, and then that enormous lie just gets broken up and filtered down into lies upon lies upon lies about every aspect, from their social policies around child protection, around their health policies, around the blood issues and organ transplant, around their financial dealings, around their prophecies, around their interactions with others, with just every aspect of the organization is built on a lie. And I didn't realize that until I left and started to decode everything. Their governing body members tell lies in court, their senior people tell lies in court, their elders tell lies in order to cover things up. They're very deceptive. So trying to guilt trip the rank and file with this video to say that telling lies are bad, and I'm not saying that what he did at work was right, I'm not saying that, but it's also wrong to imply that the only people that are truthful are Jehovah's Witnesses, because we know that that is not the case.
If we put secular work above everything else, we could lose out on needed rest and spiritual pursuits. Our brother in the video sacrificed precious time with his family and activity with the congregation because he did not have a balanced view of secular work. Read with me what Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 6 indicates about being balanced. Ecclesiastes 4:6. Better is a handful of rest than 2 handfuls of hard work. And notice what it adds, and chasing after the wind. Chasing after the wind is an exercise in futility.
So in this clip, the speaker again is trying to paint this negative view of working and trying to say that by taking on the extra hours, the extra overtime, he's missing out on the physical rest, the mental rest and time with his family, and also missing out on pursuing spiritual goals. So when I was a pioneer, volunteering 90 hours of my time every month, I missed out on rest, on eating well, and also that physical and mental respite, because I was just doing so much in being a Jehovah's Witness, because they focus on keeping you busy and they guilt trip you to make you think that if you're not doing more, and whatever you did, it was never enough. You can always do more. So if I wasn't doing more over and above my 90 hours, then I was made to feel guilty. But at the same time, that was where I was feeling really tired and exhausted, and I was completely burnt out. Completely burnt out. But yet, that's not what they're trying to say here in this video. They're saying that the only thing that could burn you out is by working in a secular job where you can earn the money to feed your family. I would have much rather have been burnt out at work, because then my company would have had a responsibility to manage my health and well-being, and I could have taken off time sick. I could have had the money to go on a holiday and relax and recover, to eat well and build up my body. But no, that's neither here nor there according to these people. According to these people, you need to reduce the amount of work that you do and focus more on your spiritual goals. Crazy.
Friendships in the world are often based on selfish motives. As verse 4 says, wealth attracts friends, poverty drives them away. Such friendships can be shallow, and they can end abruptly.
Now, I find this really disturbing. Here he's saying that people in the world, people that are not Jehovah's Witnesses, their friendships are based on selfish motives, they're shallow, and they end abruptly. You know, when I saw this, I wanted to laugh, because I thought he has just described exactly what friends within the Jehovah's organization religion are like. They're selfish because they only want to know you if you are a Jehovah's Witness and if you share the same beliefs. They're shallow, and they will end abruptly, because the minute you decide you don't believe what they believe, you don't want to worship the governing body, you don't want to believe their false teachings, the minute you decide that, those friendships will end abruptly. They will, without a shadow of a doubt. You'll be shunned, and they will do as much as they possibly can to make your life miserable. And unfortunately, some people have ended up committing suicide because the extent to which these so-called friendships have destroyed their lives has just pushed them over the edge. So I just find it incredulous that this guy can talk about friendships in the world, i.e. non-Jehovah's Witness friendship is shallow, ended abruptly, and selfish, but he's just described exactly what it's like having friends who are Jehovah's Witnesses. When I was a Jehovah's Witness, I had lots of friends in my congregation and in neighbouring congregations. I'd have to say, if I'm truly honest, they weren't real friendships. They were people I knew and associates and acquaintances. They weren't the sort of people I could ring up and share a problem with. It wasn't the sort of friend that I could say, come on, let's go off for a drink or a meal and let's have a chat. Not like I do with my friends now, because that's what we do. But in the Jehovah's, when I had friends in Jehovah's Witnesses, other Jehovah's Witnesses, one, you had to be very careful what you said, because if you said something and they didn't like it, you'd be twitched on. They would be running back to the elders and telling the elders. And, you know, if it was, and it could be that you could be investigated, and even it could even end in judicial matters. So you were very careful of what you said and what you did. But I had a circle of people that I knew in my congregation and in the district, because I was a pioneer, and I had parts on the assemblies and stuff like that, so people knew of me. But the minute I escaped and I decided I wasn't going to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore, all of those friendships completely collapsed like a pack of cards. They just disappeared. So they ended abruptly, every single one of them. And people that I knew for years didn't even want to talk to me. They'd see me, they'd cross the street. Now I wasn't disfellowshipped. I haven't been disfellowshipped. I just decided this religion is not for me, and friendships ended. So I just find his reasoning is very, very fickle. Whereas my friends now all have different views. And if we have a different view and disagree about something and we see things differently, then that's absolutely fine. We're not gonna drop each other and say, well, we can't be friends because, you don't like, eating in this restaurant, or, you have a different view of politics, whatever. We don't do that. But with Jehovah's Witnesses, yeah, their friendships are conditional. On the condition, they will be friends with you and they will love you on the condition that you believe what they believe and what the governing body tells you to believe. That's not friendships. That's not a true friend.
Friendships with the world are not only disappointing, but they can also damage our relationship with Jehovah. With good reason. The footnote to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33 warns us, bad associations corrupt good morals. Cultivating friendships with people who do not serve Jehovah is like trying to mix oil with water. It just doesn't work. Why not? Because the Scriptures teach that true friends can be found only among Jehovah's people.
Wow, what a load of nonsense. Honestly, the things that comes out of these people's mouths is just incredible. Where does it say in the Bible that true friends can be only found amongst Jehovah's people? Where does it say that? He can't even find a scripture to twist to support that. He can't do that. They've taken all the scriptures and twisted it to prove their point, but they can't even come anywhere close to proving that one. Ridiculous. And it's interesting that he's using this example that trying to build friendships with people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses are like oil on water, and they're doing that very deliberately because what they want is to isolate you, to keep you isolated, so that if you do, so you'd have your social network who are only Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, it's so that you're not open to thinking for yourself and having new views and fresh perspectives on things. Because if you start thinking for yourself, you might actually realise how messed up that organisation is. And it's not from, well, it's from a God, but it's not the God, not the creator of the universe. They don't worship that God, but they worship a God. That's clear. So if you have friends outside of the cult, then you will more likely be exposed to thinking for yourself and realizing that what you've been taught is a load of nonsense. And secondly, it's an isolation technique, so it builds on that. So you have this fear of ever leaving and going out into this poisonous, wicked, evil system that they keep using this loaded language to reinforce their point. So that, and if you do dare to leave, then you will have no social network. Your family, your friends, everybody that you've known won't talk to you. That'll just completely shut down. And that's what happened in my case. All my friends, my friendship groups just collapsed once I decided to leave. So it's by design. It's by design that he's saying this, that oil and water doesn't mix. Jehovah's Witnesses and people in the world do not mix. It's by design, and it's, you know what, it's evil. It's very evil, and it's very, very wicked, and it's very manipulative, but it's very clever. It's very clever. But you know what? That is a trait of a cult. That is a cult trait, to keep its people isolated. And again, if I was Jehovah's Witness sitting in the audience listening to that, because I'd been trained to listen, to do, and to obey, it would have just made sense to me. So I'm so glad that I woke up.
Our Christian brothers and sisters are not simply companions or acquaintances, someone we happen to know. They are loyal friends. We can rely on them.
Okay, so I just have to touch on this point. He's saying that Jehovah's Witnesses are loyal friends. So again, when I was growing up, I was probably about 17 at the time, and we had a sister in the congregation, and her husband wasn't a believer, but she was, and she was raising her children as Jehovah's Witnesses, and her children had multiple health problems and health challenges, and she was struggling. She was absolutely struggling, just with everything, because her husband, not only was he not a non-believer, she's personally said to me that he didn't support her at home or raising the children. So I remember the one night she was allowed to do a part on the, I think it was the midweek meeting, the Theocratic Ministry School, the service meeting, and she was able to sort of share her experience and say what it's like raising her children, you know, being Jehovah's Witnesses and all that. And she also expressed how she was struggling. She was really struggling, and she needed help. And afterwards, the brother, he said something like, you know, if anybody can, you know, support this sister, she'd be grateful. Anyway, I was 16, 17 at the time. Now I remember going up to her and saying, look, I'd love to help you with kids. So she gave me her address, and I used to go around and see her and support her, and, you know, just help her with, you know, taking the kids out, take the kids to the park so she can get an hour's break, or I'd pick up shopping for her on the way home, or help her with some cooking or cleaning, and we became friends. And you know, she turned around and said to me probably about a year later, that I was the only person in the congregation who helped her. She said nobody else would help her. She had brothers and sisters. A couple lived in the same grove, in the same road as her, and families with cars, people with cars, lived literally around the corner. And she said not one of them, elders wives, established families in the congregation, not one of them turned round and offered her any help or support. And there were days she would be walking to the Kingdom Hall, which was a good maybe 3, 4, 5 miles to the Kingdom Hall from where she lived, and brothers and sisters would be passing her in their cars, and not one of them would offer her a lift, and she was there with the children. And that just reminds me of a sister. She was a pioneer. She was a pioneer for she was a pioneer for as long as I can remember, and she even died as a pioneer. And you would see this sister walking to the Kingdom Hall back and forth, and people would be passing her in their cars, not one of them would stop and give her a lift. And she used to pass where we lived, and me and my mum, we used to often meet her at the bottom of the road, and we all used to walk along together. And she always said the same thing, that not one of them would give her a lift. You'd often see her out in the ministry on her own. I mean, you know, she was a lovely sister, and I loved her dearly. I look back now and I just think she was just like so many of us, completely deluded and really heavily brainwashed. And that makes me really sad to see that she didn't wake up even before she died. But yeah, I suppose the point I'm making is, Jehovah's Witnesses are quick to say, oh, we love each other, there's so much love in the congregation and we're friends and all. No. And my mother, before she died, and she died still holding on to some of the beliefs of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and she always said there is no love in the organisation. There's no love whatsoever. And my mother was a testament to that. And my mother would be sick, she couldn't go to meetings, and the only time she ever saw anybody was a sister used to come around every couple of months and give her the magazines, and that was it. No elders visited her, none of the sisters, nobody came and asked her if she needed anything doing, if she needed any washing done, any shopping done, any tidying, nothing. Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm sorry, well, no, I'm not sorry, because I know now, I know the truth, and it's nothing but an evil, wicked cult, and there is no love, and there is no friendship. But the thing is, when the elders and, you know, the rank and file and the governing body, when they keep, it's kind of like a broken record technique, and they use that a lot, and they keep saying we love each other, there's lots of love to be found, and they go on about love. What they're doing is just reconfirming the lie, trying to believe it. But there is no love. If there was love, people wouldn't be committing suicide, people wouldn't be losing their families, people wouldn't be shunned. There's no love and no friendship to be found in a wicked cult.
As we've discussed in this symposium, the world claims that we can be happy if we pursue wealth, if we engage in sinful conduct, if we adopt extreme views of work, or if we cultivate friendships anywhere we can find them. Such assertions originate with the ruler of the world, the father of the lie, Satan the devil. If we look for happiness in Satan's world, we are going to be disappointed.
Well, guys, there you have it. That is who, in my opinion, the governing body and Jehovah's Witnesses as a cult serve and worship. They do not worship the God of the universe, the creator of the universe. They do not. But he's just said it, who it is that they worship. And what he's trying to do is trying to deflect the truth.
We now invite all who are able to do so to stand and sing song number 89, entitled, Listen, Obey, and Be Blessed.
Okay, so now we're at the end of the morning, the Friday morning session, and wow, that was a lot to take in. That's a lot to go over, and a lot of that was spoken. So what they're doing now is wrapping up the morning session with a song just to bed down that indoctrination and notice what the song is. So the title of the song is Listen, Obey, and Be Blessed. So they've just indoctrinated you, given you this jaded, false propaganda, their dogma, their perspective, trying to get you to believe that you have to listen to them in order to find joy. And now they're rounding off the session by saying you need to listen to what we've just told you, and then you need to obey it. You need to obey us, the governing body, and then that way you'll be blessed. So, heavy stuff. Okay guys, so that is my review of the morning session of the 2020 convention, and I hope you found the points that I've pulled out of interest. Okay guys, so that's it from me. I'm going to be making part 2, so please hit that red subscribe button and the bell if you've not done so already. Give me the thumbs up on this video and leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the convention. Okay guys, that's it from me. I will see you in part 2. Take care now.